If you want to own a real estate business, you have probably done the mental math. You see a sold sign on a $500,000 home, calculate a 5% commission, and assume the agent is quietly making a fortune. To see why that math fails, we have to look inside the transaction ecosystem. This graphic represents a $500,000 closed deal. Let's do a transaction autopsy on exactly where that money goes. The moment the sale closes, the seller does not take home $500,000. First, their existing mortgage gets paid off entirely, sending that money straight to a bank. Then, governments step in. Depending on the region, state land transfer duties and stamp taxes instantly drain up to 5 to 9% of the total transaction value. Next come the mandatory professional services. Title insurance guarantees clean legal ownership, pulling thousands of dollars. Closing attorneys and appraisers step in to collect their hundreds or thousands in fees before the seller ever sees a single dollar. After those deductions, we finally reach the real estate fees. Following the August 2024 National Association of Realtors settlement, total commissions in the United States average around 5.7%. On this home, that leaves $28,500, which gets chopped in half, split between the brokerages representing the buyer and the seller. The listing brokerage receives roughly $14,400. They retain about 30% of that, but they have to pay out franchise royalty fees and cover shared office overhead. The brokerage's actual net profit on this single transaction typically lands somewhere between $500 and $2,000. The remaining 70% goes to the listing agent. Out of their split, they pay for listing photography, digital advertising, vehicle wear, and taxes. The agent takes home roughly $4,400. Less than 1% of the total sale price. Because a single transaction's revenue splinters across a massive ecosystem of lenders, attorneys, and contractors, chasing individual commissions leaves very little margin. Starting a legitimate brokerage requires immense capital on day one. You have to pay for active state licenses, commercial office space at $2,000 to $8,000 a month, enterprise technology stacks, and thousands in local digital marketing. A new operation easily burns between $50,000 and $120,000 before a single deal closes. This chart shows the danger of the standard real estate sales cycle, which takes between 180 and 360 days from first contact to a closed deal. That creates a brutal timeline where every dollar spent on advertising in January might not produce a commission check until October. Finding clients in the first place compounds the problem. In competitive markets, a single click on a Google search ad costs $5 to $15, but only 1 to 2% of those website visitors ever become paying clients, meaning you are spending hundreds of dollars upfront just to capture a single potential lead. On top of those acquisition costs, new brokerages face a massive trust deficit. When people make the largest financial decision of their lives, they usually choose legacy brands their families have used for decades. Breaking through that barrier requires sustained marketing spending that a brand new business can barely afford. Even when you secure a client, up to 30% of written contracts collapse, an inspection fails, an appraisal comes in low, or a buyer backs out. The brokerage loses the commission, but they never get back the money they already spent on coordination and marketing. Every failed deal is a hard cash loss. The majority of real estate businesses collapse early. They do not fail because the core business model is flawed. They fail because they lack the required cash reserves to survive the structural mismatch between daily expenses and delayed revenue. To escape this cash crunch, many agents try to bypass normal homes entirely. They try to sell exclusively in the luxury market, assuming a few multi-million-dollar properties a year will solve their margin problems. But high-end properties priced above $5 million regularly sit on the market for over 150 days. During that time, the holding costs are extreme. Owners and brokerages pay compounding debt interest, continuous climate control, and marketing budgets that easily exceed $25,000 for architectural films and designer staging. By contrast, mid-market homes priced between $300,000 and $600,000 turn over rapidly. In active American cities, they reach a closed sale in a median of 53 days, and in high-demand areas, that drops to under 3 weeks, providing reliable cash flow. The greatest threat to both markets is an interest rate shock. Because real estate is purchased with borrowed money, the cost of debt dictates the buyer pool. When the Federal Reserve raised rates to fight inflation starting in 2022, 30-year mortgages climbed from 3% to over 7%. The monthly payment on a standard $400,000 mortgage jumped by nearly $1,000, pricing millions of potential buyers out entirely. When borrowing costs spike, affluent buyers pause, and the luxury market can freeze completely. Brokerages built on consistent mid-market volume are far more likely to weather global economic hesitation. The smartest operators in this industry eventually stop selling their time for individual transactions and start selling ongoing services. Property management is where true defensive income lives. Brokerages take over daily operations for landlords, handling tenant screening and maintenance coordination. In exchange, they charge a flat 8 to 12% of the property's gross monthly rent. This chart shows the math of scale. Managing 100 properties at $2,000 monthly rent, a 10% fee generates $20,000 every month. That is $240,000 in baseline annual revenue. This predictable fee structure flows in regardless of how many houses are selling that month. It acts as a financial fortress, covering fixed overhead and allowing the business to survive slow sales seasons without draining its cash reserves. Even with management fees, a local office eventually hits a structural ceiling, limited by the hours in a day. Real estate empires like Keller and CBRE bypass this by abandoning the direct sale of individual properties. Instead, they franchise their operational systems. These mega brokerages license their brand, their training platforms, and their software playbooks to independent operators. By collecting recurring technology and royalty fees from hundreds of thousands of agents globally, they generate massive, predictable income streams disconnected from local housing markets. That scale is currently being accelerated by artificial intelligence. Major institutional investors are rolling out machine learning algorithms to generate predictive pricing models, automate inbound lead qualification, and dispatch contractors for property maintenance before a human manager ever picks up the phone. The biggest fortunes in real estate are never built by trying to capture the commission on one expensive house. They are built by understanding the entire economic ecosystem, surviving the early cash flow drain, and constructing an automated system that generates wealth regardless of what the market does next.